I remember when I released my first book, which tells the story of my time in Iraq and meeting my husband. As soon as I released that book, I was reached out to by multiple organizations. Hey, we'd love for you to come speak about your book, do a book signing at our group or our meetings or something like that around San Diego and around El Cajon, where I live, which has a huge Iraqi refugee population here in El Cajon. And one of the groups that reached out to me in the very beginning was quite a conservative group. I believe they were actually one of the original Tea Party groups in our area. And so I was a little surprised, but I was very excited. I was like, well, this is great. This is a great sign. I'm really excited to go speak for this group. And so I got to their little meeting and they said, oh, well, the first half of the meeting was going to be our regular monthly meeting. And the second half, you can get up and do your presentation and, tell us about your book. And I'm sitting in the audience, and the entire first half of the meeting was them talking about how fearful they were of this new wave of immigrants from the Middle East who were all Muslim. They were coming in at that time from Syria because of the civil war. Lots of Afghan immigrants were coming into the community. Since we had the original Iraqi population here, our community was already poised to kind of welcome new refugees. So the resettlement communities were sending them again to our town. They were talking about in the meeting how they were okay with the Iraqi refugees because most of them had been Christians that were being resettled, but the new wave were all, Muslims coming in. And it was just a half an hour of what are we going to do? And what's this going to mean for our schools? And how is this going to affect our community? And there's going to be more Muslims in my child's classroom than Americans. And it was just, and I'm sitting there going, I am in the lion's den. How did I end up here? But as they spoke on, it was just a lot of fear and a lot of this, negative rhetoric. And then, of course, they all looked at me and said, well, now let's welcome our today's guest speaker, Matti, who just got, served in Iraq and is a veteran. And we honor her, and they gave me the big round of applause. And she's going to come up here and talk about her time and the book that she wrote about her time in Iraq and how she met her Marine husband. So then it hit me that they thought that my book was about me meeting an American Marine in Iraq and us falling in love and later getting married. They didn't realize that it was an Iraqi who had worked for the Marines, who I had met and married and had brought here to the US as an immigrant. So I was 1 second thinking, how do I sneak out the back door? But then the next minute I said, I'm really in a unique position right now. I'm here for a reason. And I have a huge opportunity in front of me, and I should really jump on this. So I got up, went up, did the presentation I had planned already, that I was, talking about my Iraqi husband, how he had been my interpreter, how he had served shoulder to shoulder with Marines, how he had been injured in combat, how he had protected people, how I was probably alive because of the cultural advising he had given our team, and how he wasn't unique, how he wasn't one in a million, that there were thousands of Iraqis and Afghans who had stepped up to offer their help and their service to assist American military troops on the ground, to serve as cultural advisors to American companies, and how a lot of American service members were alive today because of their service. And now, because of threats that they're receiving in their country, because of their service to us, they're being forced to flee. And those are who is resettling in your community right now. And veterans like myself and others are not only assisting them in getting here, but once they're here, I talked about the volunteer opportunities that we do. I was working with No One Left Behind at the time and helping these newly arrived SIVs integrate into the communities, helping their kids get enrolled in school, taking them on trips to the beaches because they didn't have cars yet, helping get furniture for their apartments because the resettlement agencies didn't have enough money to even furnish their apartments, and how we were just veterans in your community, we're doing this. And then at the end of my presentation to that group, of course, they were all dead silent, and I was ready to have, things thrown at me. they actually stood up and they started handing me business cards. My husband owns a hardware store. We would love to hire them. My family owns a grocery store down, in La Mesa. We'd love we have openings. We'd love to get them hired. My daughter is a tutor. If the wives want to learn English, my daughter would love to tutor them. And it was amazing how everything had just flipped. And I think a big sticking point too wasn't that I had gotten up and said, well, you're wrong, and I'm gonna counter everything you're saying, and this is why you're wrong. They knew that the presentation I had walked in there with was something that I had prepared before I even came in, and they understood the miscommunication. And when I just got up and just continued, this was what I was already going to say. I wasn't going to tell them they were wrong or anything like that. I'm just going to say, well, here's my experience. Here's what I personally know, and I'm going to share that with you. And I think that really helped to kind of diffuse the negative rhetoric that was going on.